All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eric Edgefor, and I'll be filling in here for Devin today. Today, we have the topic of business automation brought to you by Michael Webb. Michael Webb is a Vice President of IT Application Development at Lincoln Financial Group. And in his role, he's accountable for software delivery of Lincoln operations. This includes their digital intelligent automation program, business process management, robotics process automation, straight-through processing, BDB, scan capture, and enterprise integration service and integration services. Prior to joining Lincoln, Michael led the application development at CNO Financial Group, where he drove key enterprise initiatives ranging from back to office scan capture programs to front-end portals for independent marketing and operations. During his tenure at CNO, the organization released their first variable annuity online service center and transformed their back office business process by outsourcing their infrastructure to reduce costs and improve productivity. Prior to CNO, Mike managed application development and support functions for Conseco. During his tenure at Conseco, his teams achieved 100% delivery of projects on time and on budget and reduced their number of support-related incidents by 25%, which resulted in improved stability for Conseco's mission critical applications. Mike holds a Bachelor of Science degree, magna cum laude in business management and business information systems from Indiana Wesleyan University. Thank you, Mike, for joining us today. Turn it over to you.
No problem. Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Sir.
Great. So I'm going to dive in. I want this to be as interactive as possible, right? So if you guys have any questions, by all means, stop me. I know there was a lot said, a lot of acronyms in my bio, but I've had a very great and interesting career across a couple of companies that definitely has helped me grow, grow today to where I'm at. And, I appreciate all that experience, but a little bit about Lincoln Financial Group. I'm not going to bleed this slide. We have over 11,000 employees, so we're a pretty large company. We have a tradition of strength through our distribution, helping people take charge of their future. We're really committed to corporate responsibility. Something that I'm a big part of is our charitable giving contribution boards. It's something I believe in that, we should help the communities that we're a part of. And we definitely promote success through diversity and inclusion. That's something else that's very near to me. Been working with D&I.
What kind of businesses are you looking for?
Yeah, been working with D&I for about 6 years. And it's interesting because now, the focus on D&I and really this partnership that we have now with BDPA has been a result of that. And we're just getting started with it. And we're excited about that as well. So 4 lines of business: life annuities, retirement plan services, and group benefits. What I'm going to discuss with you guys today, most of my teams are enterprise, and this is something that we've been working on for a while, the automation space. So again, pause me if you guys have any questions. A lot of my conversation will be on this slide. I do have a couple of other ones, but really, when you take a look at automation for a company, okay, there's a lot of things that a lot of our companies do. And if I can get my cat to leave me alone, I promise I'll be able to focus on this. A lot of companies desire automation, right? The question that we ask is, why do people want automation, right? Business efficiency, right? Process efficiency, cost savings is a big part of why automation is so important and this industry is blown up. Really over the past 4 years, it's probably existed in one form or fashion, probably over 20 years. It goes as far back as macros in Excel or scripts that you could screen scrape and different pieces like that. But now companies truly are focusing on platforms to automate. So something that I'm big on is that in order to automate well, you have to learn how to digitize your data, right? So digitizing your data is kind of the basis of automation. If you don't have digitized data, it makes it very, very difficult to automate. Most of the tools that are in the market today are focused around getting data, one way or the other. If you think about RPA looks at screens and it scrapes data, right? So as soon as you have data, right, that's digital, it makes it easier to automate. So something we're doing here is we really want to get to a place where we're only accepting paper for 20% of our business, right? That's a hefty goal, right? A lot of companies have tried to eliminate paper year after year. And if you get to the place where you're eliminating paper, again, you're getting to that digital data where it's really important for you to be able to automate. In the case that you can't, our business automation function uses tools like OCR that will read forms, that'll read documents, letters, or whatever you may have in order to digitize the data and push it into our processing engine. So that's something that we focus on up here is how can we reduce our paper, or how can we digitize the data on our paper? The other piece that we focus on as well is our customer facing portals, right? So as much as we can, adoption is a key thing here. Let's push our customers and our consumers to the web. Most of us live in an industry now, or a world now, where digital is just the way we do things. We do digital banking. Most of us probably manage our auto insurance online. Most of us probably pay most of our bills online. And those services, while they're a necessity for life now, a lot of folks don't look at managing their life insurance policy or managing their 401k investments or doing a claim, right? A lot of people want paper, right? To be able to make sure they sign and everybody understands what's going on there. But in my mind and going forward, automation needs to have that front end experience that allows you to collect digital data, have edits, right? Make sure that the data that we're collecting is correct. And then once that data is done, then you're able to push that into your digital process platform. So there's many of them. I won't get into tools, right? But what those platforms allow you to do and the power of them, and this is really the box here where business automation becomes real to our business customers. Digital process automation platforms allow you to create business processes, right? So every company, regardless of the industry, has a business process and it has something that manages that process. So it allows you to create those business processes in a single tool. Most of the time they're low code or no code. Why? Because you really want the business to be able to modify and change those and not have to have an IT resource or a developer be part of that life cycle of making changes to their process. So that's where the automation happens. I like to say that straight through processing is the ultimate form of automation. If you're able to collect digital data via OCR in your web portals and you're able to process it all the way back to your backend platforms, that's the ultimate form of business automation, right? It doesn't get any better than that. In the case that you can't, and you have what I call complex cognitive work, or you need exception processing, that's where people come into the mix. So let's have a system that's part of the process where we need to insert people here to make a certain decision, or we need to have a bot, an RPA bot, help us with making a decision. And that's where people come into the mix. But automation, if anybody asks you, your goal should be straight through processing, right? It should be STP 100%. That is the most effective and efficient form of automation. I'll pause just a second before I dive into APIs and data lakes and EDM programs. Any questions? Great. So something else on this screen here is this API box. I'm sure we're all familiar with APIs. APIs have been huge, right, for our industry. It's given us the ability to integrate with multiple types of systems in a very lightweight, quick, and easy way. So it's easy for us now that, again, we have digital data, we have a business process that applies rules, talks about compliance, whatever we need that our business thinks that they have in order to make that process correct. And now what do we do that we've finished processing a claim? We've finished collecting all the data on a claim. We finished an address change. We finished product selections on a retail. Sorry, guys, I lost my connection there for a second. All right, can you guys see my screen again?
Yes, sir.
All right, sorry about that. So now that we have that data, it's prepped, our selections are made, it's automated as much as we can. How do we get data into those back-end systems? At a financial services company, it's mostly older mainframe admin platforms. At a retail company, it could be something newer. It could be something in AWS that lives on a more modern architecture. But regardless of what the back end is, you need the ability to move that data into the actual system of record, as we call it. So APIs is a huge part of that, right? It's open up the world, give us the ability to do that. The second part of that, if you do have older legacy-based systems that don't support APIs, which we're a 110-year-old company, and being 110 years old, we have systems that's been around for a very, very long time. So something we've been able to do is to utilize RPA, which is a type of automation tool, to be able to integrate with older systems and put an API on top of it that gives us the ability to still integrate the exact same way if it's with the modern platform or if it's with a older system. It doesn't look any different to our teams that are entering that data back into our backend platform. So that's a big part of it. I'm going to bring it all together here in just a second. The other piece is data, right? I think most of you have heard of big data programs or enterprise data management programs are different. They're called different things. And ultimately, the goal of that is to know as much as you possibly can about your customer, right? In order to prevent our business from having to enter data about our customer. I know most of you guys have called into somewhere, and the thing that bugs me the most is that I enter my, whatever piece of identifying information, if it's a social security number, if it's a customer ID number, if it's an address. And, the first thing that happens when I get a contact center rep is, may I have your information again, right? And they're asking me over again to validate myself. And that's one of the things that automation in our business gives us the ability. Data lake, having a data lake, understanding who your consumer is from a 360 view gives you the ability to personalize that service. So now when I call in and I enter my identifying information, they know it's Michael Webb. They know where I live. They know what products I have. In smaller companies, this may not be as a big of issue, but in large companies, we have data everywhere. We have systems everywhere. So normalizing that for our customer has been super important to us, and it aids in our automation journey, right? Ultimately, you have reporting, you have some customer service, you have chatbots, but ultimately, when you look at all these pieces together, okay, when you think of business automation, this is the goal, right? The goal is to get to a place where we're collecting data and we're entering it to our backend platforms without people, right? And ultimately, what that does, it reduces cost. It reduces the cost of business for us. It reduces the cost of what we have to charge our consumers for products because we're processing their work in the most efficient way. I've seen operations where it's Fortune 500 companies manage their work in email, spreadsheets, Word documents, text documents. You'll be surprised at some of the things that some of our largest companies actually use to service our policies or our products that we have for them. But ultimately, the automation pieces that you're looking for, one of these boxes is a huge part of the whole automation practice. And if one's not working fully, you can automate mostly, but you ultimately want to be able to automate all the way through. All right, I'll pause for a second, see if you guys have any questions. I want to talk a little bit about, how did we implement our program? What are some of the things that's important when you're automating? Because a lot of times, I'm looked at as a bad guy, right? Because I'm coming into a business operation, and ultimately, if we're gaining efficiencies or re-engineering processes, we're probably going to have to reallocate people to do something else, or in some cases, we may have to reduce the staff that we need because technology now is taking care of the work, and we don't need as many people, right? And don't let anybody ever tell you the biggest cost of most organizations are their employees, right? So as you reduce employees, that could be hard, right? No one likes to see that. That's something I learned very early in my career, that when folks are laid off or you have to reduce your staff, it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And I know that our business partners have a hard time doing that as well. So that's just something I'm conscious of when I approach our business units, to try to make sure that we're sensitive to that, right? Or if we don't, we can move people to more knowledge worker or complex roles. Let's do it, right? It's not always laying off people, but ultimately automation normally results in cost reduction, which people is part of that. All right, you guys are quiet, so I'm going to move on. If you guys have any questions, stop me, okay? All right, so how are we successful? I could tell you numbers of our intelligent automation program, which focus strictly on business automation. We done an amazing job over 3 years. One of the most successful programs we had, and a lot of it started with execution, right? I tell my teams, something I pride myself on is you have to execute. As a leader, it was very uncomfortable with me for me when I became a leader. I was a Java developer, web developer for a while, and you kind of control your own destiny, right? Like, I have a project, I'm able to develop it, I'm done, right? But when you're a leader, right, I have to rely on other people for my success. And I've always told my teams, their success is my success. So if I'm not removing roadblocks, if I'm not helping you with execution, if I'm not giving you the resources you need for execution, I'm not doing my job, right? At the end of the day, I get to reap the benefit from us getting things done. But to get things done, you have a lot of roadblocks that you need to remove. So execution is king. If you're not executing, you might want to check the value you're adding, right? Because ultimately, we all need to execute in what we're doing. Something else that's important is value alignment. So these tools are not cheap. I like to say my teams are not cheap, okay? So when I'm going in to automate business processes or work with automation on our business, I need to make sure that I understand the cost of my service and they understand the value they're getting for that. And we need to be aligned on that, right? We can't say, IT said we're going to save $5 million and we came in at 3, and then they're pointing the finger back at me. So we have to be aligned from the jump. If you're working with a business partner, get that alignment very early on. It helps with communications. It helps with how you approach the programs. It helps with how successful you are, because now you're in it together versus did one achieve it or not. Relationships, I know you guys probably know relationships are important. Again, as you automate, if you desire to be in that field, as you automate, again, you're gonna change how businesses look a lot. And it's important to have relationships with the leadership of your business partner. If not, it can become very difficult for you to succeed. Something else is innovation, right? Don't just look at the tools that you have as that's all you have. I'll tell you guys, I think we were one of the first to actually use RPA or robotics with web services, right? Because it gave us the ability to do more. So always think about innovation, always think about ways to make it easier for you to accomplish your job, right? The quicker you can do it, the better you can execute, the more value you can gain. Never stop learning. I think this is a good thing. This career has been great. Continuous improvement is amazing. Always think about ways to improve. And then also think about change management. You're going to have to make changes. You're going to have upgrades. You're going to have tweaks. You're going to want to think about how how you introduce your change management, how you really understand other dependencies, other systems for change management is something else that's really important to, to understand and part of the success of any automation program. We have a vision here that our target state operations will be built on optimized business processes, platforms that facilitate automation, and data and events that are tied to the customer. That's as good as it gets, okay? Because you're able now to run at your most efficient level. Something about the teams, there's something here about full stack automation, empowered teams, and low code. Ultimately, you want to have a tool that you're able to automate on 100%. You don't want to have to go to different places or use different systems to really automate. Try to find that platform that works for your company. In your evaluation, look for the things that's going to make it easy to empower a team. I don't want to be in between teams in their business on how they're doing the work. I just want to make sure they have everything they need to accomplish their job. And I mentioned low code, iterative delivery. You guys have probably heard of agile development. The quicker you can add value to your partners, the more demand you'll have. So we try to do iterative delivery. We try to do every 2-week releases, if not sooner, right? If we can, but all that's facilitated by the platforms that you select. If you have full stack automation, if you have empowered teams, then you're able to do things a whole lot faster. All right, so that's what I put together for today. I think it's an interesting space. Like I said, it has grown a ton over the past 3 to 5 years. I think it will continue to grow. There's tons of tools. It's an interesting career because it borders on the line of, there's definitely a technical development aspect where you need hardcore developers, but then there's also what I would call a configuration development, which is more configuring a tool to work a certain way, right? Versus having a developer write code. And when you have a tool like that, it opens up your ability to hire different kind of people with different kind of backgrounds. And that's great in this market, very, very competitive market right now. And finding people is important. Java developers, for example, are in huge demand. API developers are in huge demand as well. So when you find a tool or have a tool that you're able to train folks on, it makes it a little bit easier for you to hire and build those teams out. All right, so I'll stop sharing and we'll open it up,
Hey, Mike, this is Steve Woodward. Good to speak to you again. It's been a while. Hey, question, when you are looking at automating, what is a way that, what is a good way that you found to identify those opportunities? Because that's something I'm dealing with now.
So Stephen, good question, right? I call it opportunity identification, right? We went through this with our initial start of our intelligent automation program. So we looked for our high value, highly repetitive processes first, right? And we tried to limit that to systems where it only involved 1 or 2 systems, okay? Because once you get into very specialized work, it becomes very difficult to automate it, right? Or very expensive. So highly repetitive is something that was one of our criteria for automation. Less than 2 or 3 systems that are involved, and how many, the number of people that we had doing that task. Those are some of the staples of what we looked at. What we found when we went outside those boundaries, we could automate, you can, right? But it just became very expensive for us to do. And in some cases, Steve, and when I talk about the value alignment, some cases automating those complex cases where it's outside of our normal guidelines is necessary because there's so much value at the end of that we're able to get the expense that it costs to automate that complex process far away. The benefits outweighed it, so we're able to get it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the starting point, but that's worked for us. But I think there's probably other things, other levers you can look at as well.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Hey, Michael, I have a question. My name's Johnny Gray. Can you
Hey, Johnny,
tell
how
me,
are you?
good, thank you. Tell me a little bit about your management of the project. Are you using Agile for this process? And also, can you talk to us a little bit about techniques you might be using to facilitate speed of delivery, like test-driven development? Tell us how that did so far as the management and the execution of the projects.
Absolutely. So we've used the mix, right? Sometimes I call it agile fall, right? Where, we have waterfall, we have agile, right? We did have agile pods that worked for us well, right? At the beginning of the program, we use waterfall or adaptive as what we call it as well for others. It really is dependent on your partner. Agile is great when you have full buy-in and empowerment from the business, right? So if the business is in, they have a product owner that's directing the work, Agile is great, right? I think when you don't have that, you need a more traditional project management structure that's mostly waterfall. As far as the second part of your question around other techniques or ways that we've done things, you mentioned test-driven development, I believe. So the tools that we chose are DevOps based, right? So we didn't do test-driven development. I think of that more so in terms of true coding from my perspective. But what we did do was to ensure that full stack automation developer, that they had full access to everything they needed, from infrastructure to database to front-end web, if we're running in the cloud or we have a cloud-based API, that those developers had access to do all of the work, which is what we call full stack development, because we don't want any handoffs, right, and friction in between what we're trying to accomplish in the end or waiting on another team to actually, do work for us. So that was one of the things that we did. We tried to remove infrastructure out of the picture, right? They set up everything for us, and we had approvals and things that this is how you can use these items. But we removed as many roadblocks as we could to have that developer focus on in the end what they needed to accomplish.
Thank you.
I do see a question in chat. What are some of the issues your company encountered in automating your processes? Was it difficult to get buy-in from your business partners? I can tell you guys enough, relationships is huge, right? So it was difficult, right? I think that any automation program, if you don't have executive level support, people will push against it. Okay. Our executive level support came from Dennis, our CEO. He committed us to the street on that, there's some savings that we're going to obtain, right? And then from there, our executive business partners, kind of got in line. The good thing is I did have a relationship with all of those partners prior, right? Because I've been working with them for a while. So I think that they could see and they knew that with these teams involved that we're working with, we know we're going to get some value, but it's difficult. I think something else that I would advise is when you're automating, talk to the employees. Okay. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't always know what every person in my organization does every day. I don't. If anybody tells you that they do, they're probably not telling you the truth, right? There are some processes and procedures in place that people have created to make their jobs easier. I fully empower people, and I don't pretend to know everything, right? And how they get things done. But what I do when I go to look at a tool or I'm looking at another program, the first thing I do is ask my team. Let's ask the people on the ground. What are your biggest pain points? What are your biggest problems? Because anything you build, I don't know if you guys experienced this, employees will find a way to circumvent it, right? You can build the most automated process, and then it hinges on an Access database or an Excel spreadsheet that someone decided to build because they thought it was a good thing to do, right? So you really, executive leadership, buy-in first, but when you're in the programs and you're automating your processes, talk to the people who's doing it day in and day out. If you do that, when it's time to implement that process, those people will be very receptive because they felt like they were a part of the overall project. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Yeah. What else? Any other questions? Any thoughts? Any suggestions for me? Anything that has worked for you guys that I've missed? Because I'm always looking for other ways or better ways to accomplish, our goals here at Lincoln as well. Somebody has to have something, right?
Well, if no one else will speak up, I'll speak up a little bit. So if we are coming in
Mhm.
and we're looking at taking an existing tool, I'll use tool as a word,
Mhm.
and converting it over to a web, upgrading it. So actually transforming it, moving it to AWS and transforming it. What is the best way that you would go about laying the foundation for that? Meaning the base work and then adding the automation on top.
So Stephen, that's an interesting question, right? Because it sounds like most companies, they're on some sort of cloud journey, right?
Yeah.
That we want everything in the cloud, right?
Yeah.
We run a lot of apps in the cloud. We use AWS. I think the first thing that comes to mind, my CISO would be happy for me saying this because I constantly push the bounds of security. It is making sure that you're doing it in a secure way, right? That's the first thing. So what we've done internal here to Lincoln is that we've created like a cloud practices team that basically sets up the security, the containers that you want to use, the tooling that you want to use, and they make sure that it's secure in the end. And they give us a template, right, that we're able to deploy, Stephen. So like if I want to set up an RPA automation, or I want to set up a new API, right, I have a template that they're able to load and use, right? So I'm not going through, we call them cloud assurance. I'm not going through that team every single time I'm trying something new. I talked about that empowerment and talked about removing the roadblocks. So I think that's the first thing, making sure your infrastructure partners give you the tools that you need to be able to automate. I think once you have that and you're able to fire and spin those things up quickly, I think it's at that point, it's really about tool selection, right? What tools do you want to use to solve your problem, right? I look at IT has become like this toolbox with screwdrivers and hammers and pliers and all these different things. And each one of those tools, right, serve a different purpose, right? We first started, some of the missteps we had, we were trying to nail in screws. I've tried that,
Right.
in my earlier days, right? Where I don't have a nail. Well, let me go and hammer this screw in the wall, and it tears the drywall out. And then my wife is looking at me like, what did you do? We do the same thing in IT, right? We try to fit around a square peg in a round hole, but it's really picking the right tool. If it's an upgrade, it's making sure you understand what you're upgrading to and what the differences are in where you're at now. If it's a migration to a totally different tool, it's really making sure you have inventory of everything that you have. So it's more about picking and choosing the right tool to solve the problem, and then making sure that the folks that are responsible for the infrastructure, be it cloud-based or internal, that they're involved and they understand what you need and they can help you remove roadblocks for your team. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think I've come in and it was in progress. So they basically are, and it's in the agile. So they've identified the framework. So they've so basically converting from their current website to a new modern website, and it's all new coding, and it's all coded. So so they're going piecemeal about it, when I think it should be, and this is just my month end review, is we, like you said, the inventory of what we have and what we need, and then laying the foundation, what are the UI pages, and then putting the functionality in the UI pages, and then putting the automation on top of that. So almost layering it in a way. That's the way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, it sounds like you're down the right path. And I think a lot of times, to your point, we miss that inventory, right?
Yeah.
And then what we've done, I've been through, I tell you, one of the moments in my career that it was probably the one moment where I really felt like someone didn't do what I wanted them to do. Okay. And, we've done an evaluation on a huge platform that I own here at Lincoln. And I was trying to gear up, excitement and get buy-in to say, we've done all the due diligence. We've looked at everything that we have, and really staying and upgrading or moving to something new, they're really one and the same. And if we move to something new that's more modern, we get more benefit and uplift. And, I'm able to find talent easier. I'm able to integrate easier. I'm able to do all these things. And we decided to go a different way, right? Because the comfortability with that, the inventory and understanding it in the end, that was one of the best. That was one of the best times in my career where I put in a lot of work to make sure people understood. It didn't go the way that I wanted, but I was able to go back to, we have a solid understanding of what we're doing. If we go one way or the other, it really doesn't matter as long as we understand what we have and where we're going.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Well, thank you. Thank you very much. BDPA, thank you for having me. I enjoy talking about this. I live and breathe it. It's been a fun part of my career. And by all means, if you guys want to reach out, if you have any questions, if you want to talk more one-on-one, I'm on LinkedIn. You guys can find me on LinkedIn. I'm more than willing to have a conversation about it. We've done a lot of good work. A couple of articles that we published as well, we can forward on. Talking about automation, definitely can share those with you guys as well. And if not, I will turn back over to the moderator. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And thank you for all the nuggets that you've given us today. I know especially helped me as I journey into this automation space here at Lilly. So one, thank you. And thank you everybody for joining. Just a reminder for some of the new folks on the call here, we have these tech talks every second and fourth Friday. So be sure to check your email, check social media for the next post, next topic coming out here. On that note, thanks everybody. You all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Thank you.